You know, I loved playing Persona 5 when it first came out. From start to finish, the game really captured something in me. But after returning to it on later playthroughs, the cracks in the game became a bit more apparent to me. Certain gameplay decisions sort of felt off, and parts of the story really didn't stick the landing, but it was still an overall amazing time. So when Atlus announced a same generation enhanced version of Persona 5 with Persona 5 Royal, I was very callous to it, and I didn't think it'd be worth my time. But I just had this nagging feeling to give it a go. And I really have to say, this review copy must have been at my calling card, because with Persona 5 Royal, the Phantom Thieves really stole my heart. So I guess I should answer the question of what exactly is the Persona 5 Royal. Well, Atlus has a habit of releasing enhanced versions of their games, with additional story content, new characters, and quality of life changes. These versions typically make the previous entries inferior, and that still rings true today. Various issues with the base Persona 5 experience on a gameplay level have been fixed to make the game a much more enjoyable experience going through. The various dungeons in this game have also been tweaked, boss fights have been overhauled, and the story fixes up some loose ends, while introducing some of my favorite characters into the series now. Now, for my longtime viewers, they know I like to prioritize story in games like this, but I want to save the story changes in the overall narrative for later in the review. Let's first discuss the changes to exploring the dungeons and changing the hearts of our targets. For those who don't know, you are the leader of a group known as the Phantom Thieves, and must traverse through different dungeons, or palaces in the metaverse, to steal the heart of the ruler to make them change their ways. These dungeons are a stark contrast to the randomly generated towers that Persona 3 and 4 have. So from the start, this game is a massive breath of fresh air. The biggest change to these palaces is the inclusion of will seeds and a grappling hook. With the grappling hook, you're able to traverse various parts of the dungeons in very creative ways. While most of the time it's just a nice visual flair to get from point A to point B, sometimes you can unlock shortcuts that make traversing your way through large groups of enemies easy, or bypassing very mundane parts of a palace. Sometimes you'll even find secret treasure chests or the aforementioned will seeds. Almost every palace in the game has 3 will seeds hidden throughout them. Sometimes you'll find them by taking the critical path, but other times you'll have to explore different areas to see if you can grapple your way to it. What I like about finding these will seeds is that when you find it, you get a small SP boost, which allows you to extend your trips in the palace, and when you collect all 3, you get a pretty powerful accessory for your troubles. Of course, you can't just waltz into a palace like you own the place. There are a variety of shadows that are on the patrol throughout the palace. You are a phantom thief after all, so sneak your way through the shadows and plan your attack on the enemies ahead of you. You can either jump from hiding spot to progress, or wait for the opportune moment to strike. The fluidity of traveling through palaces is just so enjoyable. However, you should be warned that unlike in the original game, every palace will be on guard every time you enter. There is a security meter that will go up every time a shadow spots you when you're not in hiding, and when you enter dungeons, this meter will always start at 40%, meaning the shadows will be a bit more on edge and harder to ambush. But there are things you can do to get around it that we will discuss later on in the review. But now, reveal that shadow's true form and begin the battle.
I'll reveal your true form.
The first thing you'll notice right away is a change of music for combat if you're able to land the first strike on the enemy. I'm just gonna say it now, Takeover is much better than Last Surprise. But yeah, like other enhanced Persona entries, you get a new song that plays whenever you land an ambush. Music aside, there have been a number of other changes to the combat system. The first noticeable change is the use of guns. In the vanilla game, guns would only be reloaded when you leave the palace, thus making the use of your guns very limiting unless you have ammo packs. Well, now you can pretty much open any fight with a firing squad, provided the enemy doesn't null or reflect guns. And honestly, there is something really satisfying with gunning down your enemies at the start of a battle. Guns have gone from something you use only as a last resort to a near viable strategy in your mission. The next arguably best change to the entire combat system is how the baton pass has been enhanced. When you manage to down an enemy, you'll have the chance to pass the baton on to another teammate. In the vanilla game, this only meant giving up your one more to another teammate so you can keep hitting your enemy's weaknesses. While this did provide some additional fluidity to the combat, it didn't really reward you much for using it more than once. Now when you perform a baton pass, it will level up 3 times. On the first 2 baton passes, your attacks and magic abilities are increased, and on the final baton pass, any move you'll do will cost 0 SP or HP to perform, along with having a monstrous buff to it. This adds a whole new level of depth for how you want to try and handle a group of enemies or even bosses. Also, through free time activities as well, you have the ability to level up your baton pass further, so you'll be able to restore HP and SP whenever you perform one, making constant baton pass chains a must for long stays in the palaces or mementos. So now I want to talk about the next thing Royal does right, and that's revamping all of the boss fights. Each fight will use its original first or final phase, but once that goes down, you'll be going through a revamped second phase that will challenge your approach to how you want to fight the boss. And oddly enough, some of these changes can be more of a mental block than an actual gameplay block. I won't spoil what I mean, as you will understand when you fight the Kamoshida boss fight, but there are ones that will constantly keep you on your toes and having you take advantage of ever-changing weaknesses and the flows of the battle. Almost every boss fight was improved in this game. Well, almost everyone. I feel like the Akumura boss fight is objectively worse than the original, but damn if I was not hyped when I managed to finish him off with only 5 seconds left to spare. All of this said, the boss changes will make returning players have to think their actions carefully and not fall back into old habits, while newer players will have to make use of the skills they've learned up until now. Now let's keep going with some of these quality of life changes for the combat. Contrary to popular belief, Persona 5 Royal is a Shin Megami Tensei game, and returning to this series since Persona 2 is the ability to negotiate with shadows, or potential personas. When you successfully down an enemy, you'll enter into a holdup, and from here you can either perform an all-out attack, and oh, by the way, even Futaba has one this time around, or negotiate with them. What's different with negotiation is you have the ability to view what kind of mood the shadow has, and not just that, but Morgana will even chime in and give you advice on the best way to negotiate with them, as depending on its mood, certain answers will make it either more friendlier towards you or more hostile. But just as you have this ability, so do your enemies, as there are chances you'll run into a hostage situation. This occurs when the enemy is able to down one of your teammates and takes them hostage. And I'll be honest, in my entire time playing through the vanilla Persona 5, I only ran into this situation maybe 1 or 2 times my entire playthrough, but I swear I ran into this at least 1 or 2 times a dungeon. I'm not sure if they made this more frequent or not, or I've just gotten more unlucky, but I appreciate the change in pace, even if it's an inconvenience to me. In these hostage situations, shadows will demand stuff from you for your friend's return. This can be asking for an item or your own health. You don't have to comply though, as you can rely on character skills to get you out of these situations no problem, or rely on other Phantom Thieves online. But being able to know how a shadow feels and the best way to communicate with them goes a long way in making both of these situations all the better for you. There are just so many changes for the better in this game that take already good systems and just make them so much better. This video could go on for over an hour if I were to talk about each and every little thing. So the last thing I want to discuss is Mementos. For those who don't know, Persona 3 and 4 both have a procedurally generated dungeon to explore, and Persona 5 is no different. The only difference is, unlike Tartarus in the TV world, Mementos isn't the main focus. That said, it is best to fully explore to make the later game much easier. But onto the topic, originally Mementos was pretty much a drag on this otherwise awesome game. You would have to make do with listening to this amazing music track for hours on end as you explore the place. Well, now Mementos has a new coat of paint and new music. That's right, no more of that ear-grating music from the original. Each new layer of Mementos has a new music track to go along with it. This made exploring the depths much more enjoyable. Not only that, but Mementos now has a new shopkeeper to encourage you to keep coming back. Throughout Mementos, you'll find flowers and stamps, and you can use those at Jose's shop to purchase rare items or to change the cognition of Mementos so that you can get more EXP, items, or money after fights and exploring. All of this makes Mementos more of a utility for the player to complete as opposed to a massive slogfest to the bottom. Now one of the bigger changes of your day-to-day life as a student. One of the biggest complaints from the vanilla game was how your free time was restricted due to story events or from spending your day in the metaverse. Now, in this game, you have more opportunities to make use of your evenings even if you have a story event happen. You are also now able to do work around LeBlanc at the bare minimum if you're unable to leave due to having spent time in the metaverse as well. This allows you to at least raise your social stats so you are able to unlock more confidants sooner. This made trying to max out all of the confidants in the first run much more streamlined. I felt less pressured for time, as I no longer had to debate if I wanted to spend the day in the metaverse or if I wanted to raise my skills or hang out with someone. Thanks to this new free time, you can have all the time you need to spend time with your confidants. Maxing out your confidants in this version is much more imperative, as you will unlock new abilities that will help you out inside of the metaverse by simply building up your relationships with people around town. This can range from better tactics in battle, or allow you not to have to worry about your security meter too much, to being able to restore a large amount of SP when you need it the most. This allows for some of the more neglected confidants to have a reason for players to spend time with them. But honestly, you should want to spend time with just about everyone, because the confidants in Persona 5 are just so good. I honestly can't think of a single bad confidant in this game, and I wanted to do my best to make sure I spend time with just about everyone. What really took this game to a whole new level was the inclusion of the new confidants. New to Persona 5 Royal are Takuto Maruki and Kasumi Yoshizawa. We also get an entirely reworked confidant with Goro Akechi as well that will allow you to level him up through all 10 ranks. The inclusion of these three surprisingly added so much to the overall Persona 5 experience. The three of them added an entirely new perspective of the events of the game and the goings-on with the Phantom Thieves. Maruki is the guidance counselor who was hired to help treat the students with their recent traumas regarding Komashita, and believes the Phantom Thieves are doing a great job in the hope they bring to others. Meanwhile, when asked, Kasumi has a more pragmatic opinion. While she agrees the Phantom Thieves are doing good, she believes that an over-reliance on them by society is a bad thing and they should stop. And well, Akechi, we all know how he feels, and if you don't, you'll learn soon enough in game. These new perspectives really add a lot to the story at hand, more so with how intertwined the three of them are throughout the game. Through getting to know Maruki, you learn more about what makes him tick and why he is doing the things that he does, and you'll get to see how he's supporting the other members of the Phantom Thieves through their own traumas. In a sense, Maruki is probably one of the ideal adult confidants in the series to date. He's able to be empathetic with your friends and help them put a rest to a lot of issues they have, which in turn leads to a lot more character development for them. In regards to Kasumi and Akechi, I am honestly surprised at how much I enjoyed them. My biggest gripe with Persona 4 Golden is how Marie was ham-fisted into the game as being an integral part of the story. With Kasumi, her inclusion begins from the onset in a very natural way, and her inclusion in the overall story is what makes her so great, and makes her feel like she's part of Joker's inner friend group naturally. I honestly can no longer imagine the Phantom Thieves without Kasumi now. And in regards to Akechi, man do they really want to sell me on him. I am the first to admit I am not the biggest fan of Akechi. I felt like you were never able to spend that much time with him to make their rivalry feel genuine. It felt rushed. Now that you get to spend even more time with Akechi and have all of his confidant events reworked, you get to see a new side to him, and at a brief moment, get an idea of what he really thinks of you and your fellow Phantom Thieves. I honestly cannot believe my hatred for him turned into me liking him more. I'm gonna be quite honest, I didn't expect to eat this much crow during this review. Honestly, I don't think I'd be doing this review any justice if I don't mention the improved interactions between the Phantom Thieves themselves. There are many more events that you'll see the group acting together outside of their escapades in the metaverse. This can range from new text conversations in which we get some really cool photos of different party members together, to spending the night playing darts or billiards with everyone. The game goes out of its way to make the Phantom Thieves feel like a genuine group of friends. This in turn makes the events in the main story feel more impactful. Even if you don't max out your party members' confidants, all these events and small moments make it feel like the group grows closer and closer as the plot of the game progresses. While I did love the original story of Persona 5, looking back on it in hindsight made me realize there were a few chips in the paint. One example would be the localization. The localization of the original Persona 5 was a bit odd, as at the start of the game things were presented a bit weirdly and didn't really sound right when the dialogue was presented, and it would improve as the game goes on. Well, it seems like they went over the localization again with a fine-toothed comb and improved on making the overall text flow a lot better and make it a bit more coherent. I honestly appreciate this because it adds a lot of flavor to the text that the original game didn't have. In regards to the overall story, a few things were introduced to help with the flow, and added some additional information on things that makes things a lot more clearer. One of the biggest things they improved was an explanation of a major twist in the later part of the original story. Additional lines were added to fully explain everything that happened better, and I really did appreciate that, because when I originally played through it, I was still a bit lost after seeing everything happen. Another change that was made would be during a critical moment in the story, they decided to go in and dub the entire scene instead of having you read through all of the text. This made the scene much more powerful, and it came off much more personally given the context of the story up until that point. Alright, now we're on to the cream of the crop of this game, the entire new third semester. Now, due to spoilers and my embargo information, I cannot divulge or show anything other than what's already been shown officially. I will say, this is the part of the game in which Kasumi will become a playable member of the Phantom Thieves, which is honestly a shame because she's a very good party member to have, and I felt like her inclusion in the group could have been done much sooner. You will also get this additional month to try and level up more of your confidants before the end of the game. The additional time is more than welcomed as it feels like you have much more time to do what you want. In terms of the new story content in the third semester, all I can say is that you are in for a real treat. Persona 5 Royal was headed up by a pretty much new team at P Studio, as most of the old guard is left to work on Project Re Fantasy, meaning this entire third act is completely original from this new team, and I am going to say, this shows so much promise for the future of the Persona series in terms of writing. The themes that were discussed and how they were handled in this arc had me in literal tears. I am being really serious here. The story and the ending of this arc had me nearly bawling my eyes out. Not many video games have that power to make me cry, and I will say this part of Persona 5 Royal really hit me emotionally. The ways the entire final palace is set up, accompanied by the wonderful boss fight and the new music came together as just one giant emotional roller coaster, that even now I'm honestly tearing up thinking about it again as I type this review, and as I'm recording it, man, that was just really good. It's not even scripted, I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, but the entire third semester just really made this experience. I would really like to dedicate an entire video to this topic in the future, discussing why this part of the game touched me in the way it did. I love this entire 30-ish hour expansion to the story. This part of the game is worth the purchase of the Royal alone, and I honestly envy all of you who will get to experience this part of the game for the first time, as I wish I could do it all over again. So the final thing I wanted to talk about is the game's soundtrack. Vanilla Persona 5 has one of my favorite video game soundtracks of all time, and I'm gonna be honest, I did not think it was possible to improve and add more music that goes beyond the status quo of the game. A lot of the newer tracks are just so good, and they're very atmospheric, and they are so atmospheric that they can sometimes send a chill down my spine. The best example of this would be the track titled Gentle Madman. When you first hear this track in the context of everything that is happening, you will realize that something isn't right and have a continued unsettling feeling. There are also new music tracks that play homage to older Shin Megami Tensei titles as well that you'll hear in new places. Honestly, each and every music track that was added to this game is just amazing, and I can't believe how good they managed to make it. A lot of the feelings I felt in the third semester of this game seriously came down to how good the music was and how it added a lot to the overall feeling and atmosphere, and I wish I could dive in and explain more of this to you all, because it seriously touched me in many ways. But again, perhaps that will be a topic for a future video where people will be less spoiler adverse. I am honestly shocked. Persona 5 Royal was a game I had pretty low expectations for. I knew it would be good because Persona 5 was a fantastic game, but I did not think it would be this good. I can't even compare this to Persona 3 FES or Persona 4 Golden, because the Royal is honestly, as the name implies, a royal treatment. I take back all of the jabs and skepticism I had about this game. Persona 5 Royal is not only the superior way to play Persona 5, but it is the only way to play this game. If you have never played Persona 5 before, then make your entry into the series be this title. You will not only get refined gameplay improvements to make everything more enjoyable, you will also get some of the best additional story content I have seen in a game of this type. I can say without a shred of doubt in my mind that Persona 5 Royal is the best game Atlus has put out, and is currently one of my favorite video games of all time. There is so much I want to say about this game, but if I were to do it now, this review would be 3 times the length it currently is. Persona 5 Royal is not a game you should sleep on. If you've played the original or are new to the series, I cannot recommend this title enough to you. The Phantom Thieves truly did make me have a change of heart. And there you have it. In the last 2 weeks, I've put in about 140 hours into this game, and it was really a trip. If you need a game to help you through these trying times, Persona 5 Royal is the one that helped me a lot through this. But yeah, that's it for today's review. If you have any questions or comments about this game or the review, by all means leave them down in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts on this game or the review. Also, let me know if you plan on picking up this game and if it's your first time into the world of Persona 5. If you're new to my channel, finding me out for the first time through this review, hey, be sure to subscribe for future reviews, let's plays, commentaries, and more. Finally, I'd like to thank all of the awesome people here on screen for helping make this monster of a review possible. And if you really love what I do here, consider joining my Patreon or becoming a YouTube member like these guys. And as always, everyone, thanks for watching.